And oh wait.
All right. Thank you all for tuning into our meeting this week. We will be having a Tableau workshop, so we hope you all are ready for that. So here's the schedule for the rest of the quarter. Like I said, today is going to be our intermediate Tableau workshop, and next week will actually be our joint meeting with Cal Poly Data Science, and we'll have more details on that early next week.
Okay, so Defining Her Future is a Women in Business annual conference hosted for students and community members of all majors and identities. Transitioning to a virtual format, this event provides an opportunity for aspiring leaders and professionals to connect, learn, and grow together, and strives to empower attendees to achieve personal excellence. Defining Her Future is an inspiring and immersive experience that will feature networking opportunities with industry professionals, a motivational keynote speaker, and tools that will propel you towards both personal and professional goals with purpose. So if you look on the screen, there's a little bit more information about it. And at the bottom right corner, there's a QR code that will give you a link to their Instagram page for more information.
All right, are you guys interested in applying for Quackboard? Because if you are, we have two openings, the Director of Professional Relations and the Director of Professional Growth. So for the role of Director of Professional Relations, essentially what you'll be doing is just managing our relationships with other companies, getting like guest speakers to come and speak to the club. And the Director of Growth will focus on promoting the club and managing our relationships within OCOB. So if these positions sound interesting to you, definitely check it out. The link is in the chat. Applications are due March 5th at 11 p.m. And the internship that we're highlighting this week is the AWS Business Operations Analyst internship. So for this position, you'll be doing sales operations and business financial analysis within the worldwide public sector business operations organization. And what they're looking for is a third year or a fourth year and someone with experience in Power BI, Tableau, and SQL. And this internship will take place in either Virginia, Washington, or New York. So if this sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out.
As always, feel free to contact us. You can reach us through Instagram or Gmail. Our Instagram is @CalPolyQuack. Our Gmail is cpquack@gmail.com. And if you scan the mailing list, the QR code on the right, it'll bring you to our mailing list. That'll keep you up to date on any events, workshops, or speakers we have coming up. And also remember to join our Slack channel to get weekly updates on upcoming meetings and workshops. We post announcements. You can get involved in more Quack events, get to know fellow members, and also see a lot of internship postings that we post on there.
And then here's a QR code that will link you to our suggestion box. We really want to cater to what you guys want as a club. So make sure if you have good things or bad things that you want to let us know, follow that QR code so we can do better for you.
All right, so we'll get started with our workshop that we have today. I'll be giving the workshop and some topics that we'll be covering. Within Tableau is going to be custom mapping, dashboards, and different ways to use filtering on your worksheets. So I will bring it up right now real quick. So before we get started, see if you guys can download the materials that were sent over in the email, either last Wednesday or either this Wednesday or this Friday. And you'll need to download the image and the data set in order to follow along with the workshop today. So I will share my screen now and we can get started. All right. Can you see that? All right, cool. So what we're gonna do first, when you load up Tableau, you should see this screen right here. And in order to load your data set into a workbook in Tableau, you just click on Microsoft Excel and then find wherever you saved your hockey_scouting data set, which you should have downloaded again from Google Drive. Click on that and then click open. And it should take about a second or two for it to all load in. But once it does, you should be able to see the data in these cells and these columns and rows like it does show in Excel. So each row for this data set is one event that happened during a hockey game on this given game date right here. So before, I guess, you kind of load your data into Tableau, you kind of should go through Excel and see exactly what the data is and get a good understanding of what each column or variable means and what it represents and what data type it is as well. So once we have that loaded in, we can go ahead and click on our sheet 1 right here. And that'll open up a blank worksheet for us to get started. So for this one, so I guess backtracking a little bit with this data set, what this data set is data set is data for the Erie Otters hockey team. And essentially what we'll be doing with our dashboard that we're going to create is we're going to have a dashboard that the coach can look at and can kind of see that game's performance and the different players that were contributing to the game in different ways. So because it is going to be a scoreboard, the first thing we need is the score for that game. So how we're going to do that is we're going to take the variable team here under dimensions. Everything again under dimensions is qualitative data. So it's either dates or strings. And then everything under measures is quantitative data. So it's either floating point numbers or integers or some sort of numeric data. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take team from under dimensions and drag that to columns. And then that way we can see that all the teams that the Erie Otters have played against are up here. So in order to filter this so for the sake of simplicity, we just want to limit it to the first game of the season. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag game date filters. And because we want to look at one individual date, we're going to double click individual dates, which can be found under the month, day, year option. Once we double click that, this should pop up. And what we want to do is, because we want to look at the first date or first game of the season, we're going to click September 20th, 2019, and then press OK. And then there we can see that there's just two teams left, the Erie Otters versus the Sudbury Wolves. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to start formatting this so it looks a lot better. So when we do put it onto our dashboard, it's already formatted the way we want it to be. So for the sake of simplicity, I've kind of gone ahead and determined the format that we're going to be using. So what you want to do to start off with is click Format up here, and then click Workbook. And this panel should pop up on the left. And the font that I chose, at least for this time around, is Rockwell. So just type in Rockwell, or you can find it under the dropdown. And we can select right here. And you can see that it changes everything from the title to the data into that font. So we're going to exit out of that so we can see our data again, or our dimensions and measures again. And then what we're going to do is, because we want the final score of the game, we're going to look at the amount of goals that they score. But since each row of data is an event, which includes shots, saves, goals, hits, and stuff like that, we want to filter it just to show goals. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag number of records into the data over here. So just drag it on top of the ABC that you see over here. And it should auto-populate with the number of events that happened during that game. But like I said, again, events includes goals, shots, hits, and penalties, and a bunch of other stuff. We want to filter it just to show goals. What we're going to do is we're going to take event from dimensions, and we're going to drag it to filters. And then we are just going to select goals and click OK. And then we can see that the goals for this game, the Erie Otters won 5-2 against the Wolves. So now that we have this all entered and all the data that we want to be present on this worksheet, we're going to format it a bit more to make it stand out. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the data. So I'm right clicking on the 5 for the area orders, and then click format from there. And because we want to make the 5 and the 2, which are the goals for the game, to stand out a bit more, on this format pane that pops up on the left side, we're going to click on fields and then some number of records. And then from here, we're going to choose the first one, default. Under default, it says font. So we want red, just so it stands out a bit more. And then we're going to change this to, let's say, 14. So that seems big enough. And then we also want to make the team names a bit bigger too. And we also want them to show instead of just being kind of abbreviated like it is right now. So we're just going to hover over the edge of the data until you can see the arrows going sideways, and then just drag it out a bit. So you can see that it is now indeed showing the full team name. So it's right now it's right aligned, but in order to have it center aligned, we have to click on this this alignment thing right here under the format in the format pane. So if that format pane isn't up, what you can do is you can just right click anywhere, right click any data, click format, and then it should pop up again. So we're going to click the alignment. We're going to make sure it says it's under sheet, and then under default pane, just click the center align right here, and that should set it to what we want it to be. So once we have that, we kind of want to make, like I said again, the team name is bigger. So we're going to click on the team name, format, and then it should say header here. And then under default, change the font to be, let's say we want this to be 12. So we'll make the team names a little bit bigger, and then you can just drag this and drag it out so it shows the full team name again. And we want, since we already know that these two names right here are teams, this team header above it is kind of redundant, so we want to get rid of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on it, and we're going to do hide field labels for columns. Once we do that, that should go away. So that's going to be our goals worksheet. Before we move on, we're going to rename it to goals. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to look at the shots on goal for each team during that game. So what we're going to do is it uses essentially the same stuff. So in order to make our life easier, we're just going to right click on goals, and then we're going to duplicate. So from here, you can see that the new worksheet is called goals 2. So we're going to change that to shots on goal, so we can easily refer back to it when we're putting together a dashboard. So because I was saying we want shots on goal, we can easily just change this filter to shots on goal. So what we'll do is we'll click here, we're going to edit filter, and then we're going to click shot. So we're going to select shot and deselect goal. And then what that does, it shows the total shots for both teams on goal for the whole game. But if you know hockey, you know that these two numbers are fairly big, and the event shot actually represents all shots that were either on goal, missed the net, or saved or blocked, sorry, before it got to the goal. So in order to have only the shots that were on goal, we're going to drag detail 2 to filters. And then we're going to click on net right here. Select on net and then click OK. And then now we can see that the shots that were actually on goal for that game. And the reason why I picked detail 2 is because if you were working with a data set, you would know, and if you knew your data set, you would see that the detail 2 over here, it's null for all events that aren't shots. But then those events that are shots have the detail 2 filled out to be what specifically that event resulted in. If it was on net or missed, and then blocked is another option for that as well. So that, again, that's why it's important to look through your data and know your data before you start doing any analysis on it. So now we have the shots on goal. And because it's not as prominent as the total number of goals here, we kind of want to make the font a little bit smaller. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click again over here, click format. And then when the format pane pops up on the left, we're just going to click up here again on the right side for fields, some number of records. And then we're just going to click under default on font, just click on 12. So we'll make it a little bit smaller. So we can start now to put together our dashboard, so you can kind of get an understanding of what we're trying to do with the scorecard concept. But before that, one thing that I forgot to mention is that over here, back on the goals worksheet, we want to show the filter for the game date, because this will be good for when we put it together on the dashboard. So what you're going to do is you're going to come over to filters, click on the drop down right here, and then click show filter. And what it does is it should show a filter on the right side with all the game dates from the data set. And it should just show September 20th selected. So from here, like I said, we're going to start working on our dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to this bottom row right here where we have our worksheets. And instead of clicking new worksheet, we're going to click new dashboard. So if you hover over this square icon that's divided into 4 smaller squares, it should say new dashboard. So click on that, and you'll see that this layout is a bit different from the worksheet. So I guess kind of a quick overview on what you have here. You have the size, so essentially the size of the dashboard that you're working with. You could also do it for phone, which makes it more horizontal. But for, I guess, the sake of this this scoreboard, we're going to make it desktop browser 1000 by 800 pixels. So, and then down here are objects. So these are different things that you can add to your dashboard to help organize it and make it look nice. And then over here you have tiled and floating. So floating, you can freely position anything, but tiled is more locked in. And personally, tiled is a lot better for having those equal sizes and like edge-to-edge formatting. So to start off with, we're going to drag a vertical object onto the dashboard. What these objects are, or these horizontal and vertical objects are containers to contain or help contain your worksheets when they're on the dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag another vertical object onto the dashboard. And then if you have it held down on the dashboard, that gray area is where that vertical container is going to land. So you can see that if you move it to different sides are shaded. So over here, it's going to be just the right side. Over here is left side, bottom half, and top half. So because we want to so this object that we're going to put right now is going to contain the goals worksheet. So we want the goals at the top since it is the most important. So we're going to drag that up here. So where the top half is just shaded and release. So now that we have here, we can just drag goals, which is our worksheet, onto that container, and it should populate. And you can see, like I said, that the filters for the game dates are on the right side. So we can see that it is left aligned. And of course, we want it to be across the whole top of the screen. So what we're going to do here is we're going to hover over this, and then we're going to click more options, which should be labeled as like a downwards arrow. We're going to click that, and then we're going to hover over fit, and then fit entire view. And it should fill up that for top half of the screen that we dragged the container onto. And because we already know that this is goals, we can just hide this title. So this whole thing fills up and looks a lot cleaner. But we also want to leave space for shots on goal under goals. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag this bit up. So it just takes up like the top half of this, or like top eighth of the screen. So we can fill the bottom with a bunch of other information that we're going to create on our worksheets. So now we want to put the shots on goal here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag it over here and then drag it right here to where it's the top half is shaded, but it doesn't overlap the goal. So once you have that shaded, just let go, and it should populate just the way goals did. So we want to know shots on goal, but the way that it's formatted here is a little bit messy. So what we're going to do is we're going to just hide the title for the time being, and then again to have it fit across the whole screen, just go here, fit, and then fit entire view, and then I will drag that up to be a bit smaller. And since we already know, or since we already have the teams at the top here for the goals, we can just so right click on the team name here and then deselect show header, and that should get rid of the team names. But of course we want to know if that is shots on goal. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the text object, which is one of the things you can do in a dashboard. So just like the containers, the horizontal and vertical containers, you're going to drag it onto the worksheet. And then we want to put it in a place that is in between the goals and the shots on goal. So once you figured out a place you want to put it, just drag it on here, and then a dialog box should open where you can put in some text. So we're just going to put shots on. We're just going to type shots on goal, and we're going to make it bold. And we'll keep it at font size 10, just so it stands out a bit more. So you can see that it puts it right in between the score and the shots on goal. So from here, you can just kind of drag it to where it looks neat and looks organized in your opinion. So I think this is good enough for me. So that is what we have so far. And we want it to take a little bit more space. So we'll make the score a little bit bigger. There we go. And then in order to get rid of these lines that are over here, which may make it look a bit messy, we can go back onto the shots on goal worksheet, and any changes that you make over here will be automatically reflected over here, since it is a live, look into the worksheet that you have. So going back to the shots on goal worksheet, right click on the data, go back to format, and then up here, click on the square that's divided into 4 squares, which is called borders. Click on that, and then under rows, go to row divider, and then under pane, click none, and it should go away just like that. So when we go back to the dashboard, we can see that there's no more lines. So we'll rename this to scoreboard, because renaming is always important, especially when you have a lot of dashboards going on, so you can easily refer back to what you were working on and why exactly you were putting together that dashboard. Okay, so next we want to add some more stuff to this scoreboard. So we want the players that scored goals on the area otters, and also the players that took penalties on the area otters, and how many goals and penalties they took respectively. So because we want that data on here, we have to create another worksheet. So click on new worksheet, and we can name this goals by player. So we have that all figured out. So of course we would need to start this off. We would need to drag players into the rows. So it has a list of all the players for all the teams that the Erie Otters played for the whole season. but we want to filter that down to just, first of all, the people or the players that played on the first game of the season. So we're going to go back and drag game date to filters, click individual dates, and then select the September 20th game. We're going to click OK. And now these are the teams for both the players for both teams on that day, but we just want to filter it just to area honors. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the team variable and drag that to filters, and then just select area honors. We're going to click OK, and now these are all the players that had events on that September 20th game on the area honors. So from here, we can, I guess, are there any questions before I move on? No. All right, cool. Yeah, so in order to populate this with the amount of goals that these players scored, again, like I said before, goals are considered events. But in order to get the number of events that happen, we need to drag a number of records to the data over here. And I guess to give an overview on what number of records is the number of times that player's name showed up in the data set with those given filters. So the numbers that you see right now for each player is the number of events that that player had during that game. But just continuing with what we want to get, which is goals, we're going to drag event to filters and then just select goals. And we can see that there are 5 players that scored goals this day, which we can see is probably correct since the Erie Otters had 5 goals on the September 20th game. So we can see that these 5 players scored a goal and they scored 1 goal each. So we want to put this onto our dashboard over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to, so you can see that we have this empty box over here. So we want to fill that with our goals by player. We're going to drag that over here and we can see that it does, in fact, put it on here. But again, it's not formatted the way we want it to be. So we are going to drag this all the way down here. Or we could actually just have it fit first, the entire view. And then we can drag this down. And another thing that we wanted to put on is penalties by player. So that's going to be similar to this one right here. So we can just duplicate this. And from here, we can just, we can change the event filter. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the down arrow next on the event goal in filters, edit filter. And then we're just going to change this to penalty taken. And click OK. And we can see that there are 3 penalties or 3 players that took penalties this day. So I guess one use of this could be a coach sees that a player is taking too many penalties over the course of a certain amount of games. And then that coach can go tell the player not to take penalties. If you do further analysis, you can see whether or not those penalties led to goals scored by the other team. And then from there, there's just a bunch of stuff that you can do with this data. But for the time being, this is some pretty general data, which can be further investigated with more analysis if you so choose. So we are going to rename this to penalties by player, so we can easily reference it again. And we're going to go back to our scoreboard. And we are going to drag penalties by player onto the right side over here. So you can see that the right is a bit shaded. Once you drop it, it should populate like that. What we're going to do is we're going to fit this to the entire view. And then now you can see that it is a little bit more leaning towards goals by player. But I think this is a good size comparison because goals are a lot more important than penalties. So having this stand out is a good idea when putting together a scoreboard like this. And then because we want these player names to stand out a bit more, we can go back into a goals by player. Right click any of the names, click format, and then we could change the font size. We'll change this to 12. And then we can change the numbers over here. So we go to up on the format pane, click on fields, some number of records, and we'll change this to 10, let's say. And that should be reflected over here. As you can see that the player names are a lot bigger. And we can do the same for penalties by player. So we're going to right click here, format, and then, like we said, change this to 12, I believe. And then then click on fields, some number of records, and then change this to 10. I think we have it. 10. Yeah. So, but we want to keep because like we got rid of the titles for these ones, but we want to keep the titles for these two sets of data over here, because without this, we wouldn't know whether or not what this data meant. So I think this is a good size for the titles, because it stands out and it tells the person who's looking at it exactly what it is. And then in this instance, the names are as important as the values to whoever's looking at it or whoever's referring to it. So having those names be a decent size and easily readable is important. So we can see that this is the data just for one game, which is the first game of the season. But let's say that we want to look at the data for a different game for the season. So what we would originally have to do is just go and change every single filter in here to be that same game date. And then that would be reflected over here. But that would be a lot of work. So what Tableau lets you do is it lets you actually create a global filter, which will change everything in your dashboard, or every worksheet that is on your dashboard, to follow that filter. So what you can do is, if you have this game date filter on the right side, which you should have if you follow it along properly, you click on this downwards arrow right here, which if you hover over it, it should say more options. And then the second option should be apply to worksheets. So what you want to do here is you want to do apply to all using related data sources. And once you do that, you shouldn't see any change yet. But once you pick another game date, so let's say we want to select September 26th, you can see that it changes all the worksheets that we have on there into the data that there was for the September 26th game. So we can see that the Otters lost. They only scored 1 goal by Hayden Fowler, and they took 3 penalties that game, which could have been the reason why they lost and had so many shots on goal against. So that's just something interesting and something pretty practical that you can use, because if there is a data set that is constantly updated, you can have this global filter to change everything on your dashboard, which makes it a lot more easier and efficient when trying to do some comparisons and visualizations as well. So that is it for the scoreboard. You can just play around with the formatting, make it look a lot nicer. Some other things you can do, if you click on the format up here on the top toolbar, and click dashboard, you can put like a background color for the whole dashboard. But then again, these worksheets have a white background. So in order to change that, you can click on Format, Workbook. It's actually not here. So I think you would have to manually go and change the color of all the worksheets, unfortunately, to this gray color. But if you have that in mind beforehand, it shouldn't be too hard when you're putting together this dashboard. That's why it's always good to have like a plan or draw something out before you go ahead and put together your dashboard. So the last thing I'll cover is custom mapping, like I said. So with this, we're going to need a new worksheet. So click on your worksheet here, and then we'll rename this to rink dash shots. So first thing we want to do is we want to load our picture into this worksheet. So we're going to click on map on the top toolbar, and then we're going to click, and then we're going to hover over background images, and then it should show the data set, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. So we're going to click on that, and we can see that it is blank over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click bottom left, add image. And then you can browse your computer for that picture that was in the Google Drive folder that you have to download. I called it hockey rink. Once you load it in, Michaela, can you see the pop-up thing? Okay. And then from here, it should show you like a preview image of that hockey rink, and it should be horizontal. So from here, we need to now code in the coordinates into the image. So what we're going to do is we're going to click, the X field should be just called X coordinate, and the Y field should be Y coordinate. Not X coordinate 2 and Y coordinate 2, because those are just other coordinates that we don't need to use for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the left at 0, and we're going to change the right to 200. So whenever you do get a image or a data set that has these coordinates, you need to know what the min and max is. That way it'll be able to scale that image accordingly. And then we know that the Y coordinate is 0 to 85. So bottom is going to be 0, top is going to be 85. And then this washout thing over here, it just changes the opacity of the hockey rink. So whatever, I guess, you feel is best for your use for this would be fine. But I'm just going to keep the washout at minimum right now. So I'm going to click OK here. And click OK. So now it's all should be loaded into here. But first, we have to drag the X and Y coordinates into the actual worksheet itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag X coordinates to rows, and we're going to drag the Y coordinates to columns. So what it does, what Tableau does at first is aggregate the measures. So in order to get rid of this aggregate, we're going to have to go to the analysis tool at the top toolbar. And then we'll click on that. And then we have to deselect aggregate measures. And then we can see that it populates onto the hockey rink. So these are all the events for the game day for the first game of the season, because like I said before, we have a global filter on all worksheets that are created, having it filtered by that first game of the season. Actually, this is the new game, so September 26th. So because it is vertical and it's a little bit harder to read, what we can do is we can make this horizontal now. So up on this top, I guess the second to top toolbar, there's this one over here that says swap rows and columns. So you click on that and it should make it horizontal like this. And like I said before, these are all the events that happen with the X and Y coordinates, but we want to look at just the shots and the goals. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag events to filters, and then we're just going to select goals, goal and shot. I'm going to click OK. And then we know it works because all the shots and goals are near the goal, which is over here. And let's say we would just want to look at the Erie Otters goals and shots. We're just going to drag team to filters. We're going to click on Erie Otters. And we can see that these are where the Erie Otters took the shots and goals. So when we hover over this, it shows the X and Y coordinate, which isn't very helpful. So what would be more helpful, I think, would be dragging the player name to the tooltip. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag player to tooltip here under marks. And that should tell you the player when you hover over it. And then we want to get rid of the X and Y coordinates under the tooltip. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on tooltip, and then we're going to delete the X and Y coordinates. I'm going to click OK. And then, yep, just show the player. So now we know that we have selected shots and goals, but we want to distinguish which point is a goal, which point is a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag event to color, and then it should automatically give you the colors for goals and shots. So we can see that there's only one goal over here by Hayden Fowler, and if we go back to our scoreboard, we can see that he was the only one who scored the goal on this day, and there was only one goal scored for the Otters in this game. And you can change the shape. So you can change, if you click on shape under marks, you can change it to filled circle, triangle, asterisk, or whatever you want. But I'll just leave it at circle for now. And if you want to change the colors from orange and blue, you just click on color, edit colors. So we'll do shot as red, we'll do goal as green. And we can see this makes it a little bit more clear now that the goal was scored from right here on the left side of the goal if you're looking up the ice rink. So yeah, that was the workshop. Are there any questions before? No? All right, cool. Yeah, so we hope you guys enjoy the workshop, and feel free to email us if you have any questions or want to know more about different data sets or different things you can do with Tableau.